Every level of NFL rivalry explained.
Level 1, forgettable.
Each level will have more and more impactful rivalries in the league as a whole, but to start with level 1, the NFL rivalries are the ones nobody ever thinks about. To start, Jags versus Texans. I mean, who even knows this one's a 37 in OT, with Matt Schaub throwing for 527 yards and Andre Johnson catching 14 passes for 273. In 2017, the Jags delivered their most dominant performance with a 29-7 blowout victory, while recording 10 sacks in the process. The 2024 season added controversy when Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair delivered an illegal hit to Trevor Lawrence, sparking a brawl between both teams. Despite over 45 meetings since 2002, the rivalry remains largely invisible to the broader NFL audience. The Bucs and Panthers have split their last 49 games almost perfectly. Carolina leads the series 25-24. That sounds competitive until you realize nobody cares about any of those games. The most memorable moments include Chris Sims suffering a ruptured spleen in 2006, and the physical 2009 games where return specialist Clifton Smith suffered concussions in both meetings. Despite 49 meetings, this rivalry remains largely overlooked by the broader NFL fan base. Same goes with the Cardinals and 49ers. I don't think anybody really notices that they play ever. Maybe 49ers fans a bit, because it seems like they always play down to Kyler Murray. No pun intended. The most memorable moments include the Cardinals' stunning 24-23 comeback in 1988 after trailing 23-0 in their first game in Phoenix, and the 2005 football Americano game in Mexico City that drew over 103,000 fans. The rivalry has seen dramatic swings, with the 49ers dominating 9 of 10 games from 2009 to 2013, followed by the Cardinals winning 8 straight from 2015 to 2018. Despite 68 total meetings dating back to 1951, this rivalry lacks the intensity and national recognition of NFL West matchups, often overshadowed by more heated division battles, but the next level has a little bit of heat.
Level 2, small spark.
These groups either had flashes in the pan type of rivalries or just consistent back and forth, but it's not big enough for them to be their biggest rivals. The Bears and Vikings played 129 times, with Minnesota leading the series 69-58-2. But as much as these teams had battled, neither would call each other their biggest rival. Even in 2024, when the Vikings led the Bears 27-16 with about 29 seconds left in the game, the Bears got a touchdown, they got the 2-point conversion, they got the onside kick, kicked it, made it, but lost in OT. And then in 2025, with J.J. McCarthy's fourth quarter comeback, it's still not an overly intense rivalry. Jags-Colts is a rivalry that's had its fair share of drama, especially during the Peyton Manning era and the years when the Jags were the only team that seemed to give the Colts trouble in the AFC South. Memorable moments include the Jags' franchise record 375 rushing yards in their 44-17 victory over the Colts in 2006. Josh Scobie's game-winning 59-yard field goal in 2010 that set a Jags franchise record, and the 2017 Saxonville, shout out them again, where Jacksonville recorded 10 sacks in a 27-0 victory, with the Jags establishing a remarkable home dominance by winning their last 10 games in Jacksonville since 2014, giving it enough substance to rise above the truly forgettable matchups. The rivalry with the Ravens and Browns was born from betrayal when Browns owner Art Modell relocated the franchise to Baltimore in 1996, creating instant animosity when the new Browns returned in 1999 to face their former team twice annually in the AFC North. Memorable moments include Lamar Jackson's infamous 2020 Monday night game, where he left for the locker room only to return and lead a comeback victory. The 2015 butt catch, where Gary Barnidge caught a touchdown pass between his legs to help Cleveland win 33-30 in OT. And Will Hill's blocked field goal return for a touchdown that crushed Browns' fans' hearts on Monday Night Football. The Ravens have also won 2 Super Bowls with players and personnel that could have brought Cleveland its first championships, including the 2000 roster team largely built by former Browns tight end and GM Ozzie Newsome. We have another rivalry with the Bills versus the Jets. Memorable moments include the 1986 giving him the business penalty when referee Ben Dreeth called Jets defender Marty Lyons for repeatedly punching Jim Kelly in the head during a bench clearing brawl. Aaron Rodgers suffering a torn Achilles just 4 plays into his Jets debut on Monday Night Football in 2023. And the 2014 game moved to Detroit's Ford Field due to a massive snowstorm in Buffalo, where the Bills won 38-3. While the Bills lead the series 72-58 and have dominated recent years, this rivalry has enough history, geographical proximity, and memorable moments to create genuine tension between these two franchises. Same goes with the Cardinals and Rams. They've played 94 times, with the Rams leading 51-41-2. This is a rivalry that's shaped by both teams bouncing between cities and divisions, but in recent years, it's become a regular NFC West battle. There have been some memorable games like the Cardinals winning 37-20 in 2021 or the Rams' playoff victory in 2022, but it's rarely been a matchup with national attention. Level 3, we get to some solid rivalries.
Level 3, solid.
The Commanders vs. Eagles rivalry developed naturally as both teams are among the NFL's oldest franchises, 6th and 7th oldest respectively. Memorable moments include the Eagles' historic 59-point explosion on Monday Night Football in 2010, featuring Michael Vick's 88-yard bomb to Deshaun Jackson, their lone playoff meeting in 1990 where Washington won 20-6 behind 5 sacks of Randall Cunningham, and the recent emergence of Jaden Daniels, who has played Philadelphia 3 times, one of those being in the NFC Championship game in his rookie year. With 182 total meetings and Philadelphia holding a narrow 90-86-6 edge, this rivalry carries genuine historical weight. But in the NFC East hierarchy, this rivalry always plays second fiddle to Eagles-Cowboys and Cowboys-Commanders or Commanders and Giants. Jags-Titans is the closest thing that the Jags have to a true rivalry. But even here, it's more about moments than a sustained heated feud. The two teams have played in some high-stakes games, including the 1999 AFC Championship, where the Titans crushed the Jags' Super Bowl dreams. There have been plenty of close games and bad blood, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s. But over time, the intensity has faded. The Jags played the Titans in Week 18 in back-to-back seasons. They won in 2022 to make the playoffs, but 2023 was a little bit different. The Titans beat the Jags, who had lost 4 of their previous 5 games heading into Week 18, to ensure that Jacksonville failed to win the AFC South and also missed the playoffs. Ravens-Bengals is a legitimate AFC North rivalry with real intensity. These teams have played some brutal physical games, and there's genuine dislike between the two organizations. The games were often low-scoring defensive battles that come down to the wire, and both teams have spoiled each other's playoff hopes over the years. More recently, the Bengals and Ravens games have been more of a shootout with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. The Bengals played spoiler to the Ravens' playoff run in the 2022 season, beating Tyler Huntley in the wildcard round in order to go to the divisional round of the playoffs. And in 2024, we got 2 classics from both quarterbacks playing out of their minds. But Ravens-Steelers is the rivalry that defines Baltimore. This one always feels like it's second fiddle. Same goes with the Saints and the Panthers. They have a legitimate rivalry that's incredibly close, the all-time record since at 32-29 in favor of the Saints. This rivalry has produced some genuinely memorable moments. There was Sam Mills getting kicked to the curb in 1995, the massive end zone fight in 2014 with the division on the line. Also in 2017 when Sheldon Rankins said it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row before they beat the Panthers for a 3rd time. In old AFL rivalry, the Dolphins won just 3 of their first 8 matchups against the Bills before Don Shula arrived in 1970. The arrival of Shula marked the beginning of the Dolphins dynasty as well as their decade-long dominance over the Bills, as Miami did not lose a single game against Buffalo from 1970 to 1979. The Dolphins, who won 2 Super Bowls and 3 AFC championships over that span, were a major reason why O.J. Simpson and the Bills made just 1 playoff appearance during that decade. The Dolphins continued to control the rivalry until the late 80s when the Bills, led by the coach Marv Levy and fellow Hall of Famers Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, and Bruce Smith, went 17-4 against the Dolphins from 1987 to 1995. The Bills won all 3 of their playoff matchups over the Dolphins during that span. That included an upset win over Miami in the 1992 AFC Championship game. The reason that it's this low, though, is after they got Josh Allen, the Bills have really been a one-sided affair against Miami, especially after November. Level 4, we start getting to some really heated matchups, and some of these are great.
Level 4, heating up.
The Dolphins and Jets genuinely have hatred for one another, and it shows on the field. These AFC East battles are often ugly, physical affairs where both teams seem to play their best or worst football against each other. The rivalry intensified when both AFL teams were placed in the AFC East during the 1970 merger. Memorable moments include the 1986 shootout where Ken O'Brien and Dan Marino combined for 884 passing yards and 10 touchdown passes in the Jets' 51-45 OT victory. The 1994 fake spike game where Marino pretended to spike the ball with 30 seconds left, only to throw the game-winning touchdown. In the 2000 Monday Night Miracle where the Jets overcame a 30-7 fourth quarter deficit to win 40-37 in OT. The rivalry also features the 1982 AFC Championship Mud Bowl game where the Dolphins won 14-0 in sloppy conditions to reach the Super Bowl. This rivalry has enough memorable games and playoff implications that elevates it above the typical divisional matchups. Same goes with the Seahawks and Rams. The rivalry truly began when the Seahawks were moved to the NFC West in 2002 as part of league realignment. Memorable moments include the Rams' 42-7 demolition of Seattle in 2017 that marked the Seahawks' worst home loss in franchise history. The 2020 NFC wildcard game where the Rams ended Seattle's 10-game home playoff winning streak with a 30-20 victory. The rivalry has also had its fair share of dramatic brawls, including the 2018 altercation between Aaron Donald and Justin Britt that resulted in $20,000 fines for both players. From 1972 to 1983, the Raiders and Steelers met 13 times, with the Raiders going 8-5 in those games. The Steelers won 4 Super Bowls during that span, while the Raiders captured 3. The two teams split their playoff meetings, including the Steelers winning back-to-back AFC Championship games over the Raiders in 74 and 75. They met in the playoffs every year from 72 to 76. But this rivalry has really died down over the years, especially with the Raiders not being very competitive for a while. The Lions and Vikings have been battling in the NFC North for decades. There's real competitive fire with these teams. Both franchises have had their moments of success, and the games are often closer than expected, regardless of records. Both teams have loaded rosters and are competing at a high level, making their matchups increasingly meaningful. But for both teams, the Packers remain their primal rival. The Packers and Cowboys have fascinating rivalry that spans decades. The all-time series sits at 22-17-1 in favor of Green Bay. They've met in some truly memorable games, including multiple playoff matchups. The Packers and Cowboys earlier this year landed in a tie. The Packers won 48-32 in a playoff victory in 2023. The Packers also beat the Cowboys 34-31 in the 2016 playoffs with Aaron Rodgers' dime to Jared Cook at the end of the game. And right before then, did Des catch it or did he not, was also against the Packers. And of course, the Ice Bowl game. One of the AFL's best teams during the league's first seasons, the Chargers, posted a 15-5 record against the Broncos prior to the AFL-NFL merger in 1970. Denver flipped the rivalry on its head in the 70s, winning 11-12 games during that stretch that included a series sweep of the Chargers en route to their first Super Bowl appearance in 1977. San Diego won 7 of 10 matchups against Denver from 1978 to 1982, while making consecutive trips to AFC title games in 1980 and 1981. The arrival of John Elway in Denver in 1983 shifted everything. While the Broncos became one of the most consistent winners with Elway at quarterback, the Chargers also toasted some success during that season, winning 4 of 6 games against Denver from 1992 to 1995, while punching the franchise's first Super Bowl ticket in 1994. Denver continued to have the upper hand in the series until Phillip Rivers came to the Chargers, starting in quarterback in 2006. San Diego won 9 of its 11 games against the Broncos from 2006 to 2011. Denver flipped the script after signing Peyton Manning during the 2012 season, as Manning's Broncos won 8 of their 9 matchups against San Diego that included their 2013 playoff victory over Rivers and the Chargers. Level 5 is real hate.
Level 5, hate.
The Browns vs. Bengals rivalry was born from betrayal when Browns co-founder and namesake Paul Brown was fired by owner Art Modell in 1963, leading Brown to create the Cincinnati Bengals in 1968. Memorable moments include the 0-4 shootout where the Bengals won 58-48 in the second highest scoring game in NFL history at the time. The 2007 thriller where the Browns prevailed 51-45 in the 11th highest scoring game ever. And Sam Weiss's famous 1989 declaration over the Stadium PA telling unruly fans, "You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati." Both teams share similar orange-based color schemes as a lasting reminder of their common Paul Brown heritage. The Jets and Patriots have played each other on an annual basis since 1960. After an early run of success by the Patriots, the Jets dominated the rivalry from 1966 to 1975. The Jets, led by Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath, swept the Boston Patriots during the '68 season before leading the Jets to a shocking upset win over the NFL champion Colts in Super Bowl III. The rivalry began to shift in the late 70s when the Patriots, led by future Hall of Famer John Hanna and Mike Haynes, had an 8-2 record over the Jets from 1976 to 1980. The teams were on equal footing in the mid-80s when they faced each other in the postseason for the first time during the 1985's playoffs. And while the Jets' defense, nicknamed the New York Sack Exchange, held the Patriots' offense to 12 first downs and 258 yards, 4 turnovers ultimately led the Jets to losing at home to the eventual AFC champions 26-14. Robert Kraft bought the Patriots in 1993. Kraft's purchase of the Patriots signaled the beginning of New England's dominance. But that was up until Rex Ryan got the head coaching job at the New York Jets. Rex Ryan and the Jets' shocking 2010 upset over the Patriots is still a sore subject for New England fans, while Eric Mangini's exposing of the Patriots' illegal video recordings has put a black eye on the Patriots dynasty. And who can forget when Jets linebacker Mo Williams knocked out Drew Bledsoe in Week 2 of the 2001 season? Bledsoe's replacement? Tom Brady. And we all know what happened after that. The New York Giants and San Francisco 49ers met in the playoffs 5 times from 1980 to 1990. The 49ers won 4 Super Bowls during that span, while the Giants won 2. San Francisco won the first 2 playoff meetings en route to their first 2 Super Bowls. The Giants won the next 3 meetings in the postseason, including 1986 and 1990, when they went on to win it all. The rivalry featured a matchup of one of the league's most dynamic players of all time, when Joe Montana, along with LT. And of course, the NFC Championship game in 2011, where the Giants beat the 49ers in order to make it back to the Super Bowl for a second time and beat the Patriots again. The Saints vs. Falcons rivalry began in 1967, when the Saints entered the NFL as an expansion team. Memorable moments include the Falcons' 62-7 demolition in 1973, that remains the largest loss in Saints history, and the emotional 2006 rebirth game, where Steve Gleason's blocked punt for a touchdown marked the Saints' return to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. The rivalry also features Drew Brees and Matt Ryan facing each other 23 times as starting quarterbacks, a record for most matchups between 2 starting QBs in the Super Bowl era. This rivalry has evolved from early futility into genuine hatred with legitimate championship implications. But the Saints still have a bigger rival in this division, and that's why they're here. The 49ers and the Rams have been beating each other for decades now. The 49ers and Rams are also the only 2 teams who have been a part of the NFC West since 1970. The rivalry has produced some remarkable moments in NFL history. The 2021 NFC Championship game, where the Rams finally broke through with Sean McVay, winning 20-17 to reach the Super Bowl in their home stadium and going on to win it. Recent games have been absolute wars. The 49ers 31-14 beatdown in 2022 to get some revenge, and just this season, Mac Jones winning on Thursday night as a backup quarterback for the 49ers. The Eagles and Giants have been tearing each other apart in the NFC East for generations. This rivalry has produced some legendary moments that still get talked about decades later. The miracle at the Meadowlands in 2010, when Deshaun Jackson returned a punt for 65 yards and a touchdown with 14 seconds left to complete an epic comeback. Brian Westbrook's 84-yard punt return touchdown in 2003. Jason Sehorn's acrobatic interception return in the 2000 playoffs. And the original Miracle in the Meadowlands, which is why people do QB kneels now. When the Eagles and Giants play, both fan bases circle the date on their calendar. The Raiders and Broncos have one of the most intense rivalries in football, and it goes way beyond what happens on the field. When Mike Shanahan was fired as Raiders head coach, Al Davis refused to pay him $250,000 in back pay. When Shanahan returned to Denver, he used that story to motivate his team. "We hated the Raiders," Sharp said. The game became personal. The Raiders lead the all-time series 73-56-2, but the Broncos swept the series in 2024. Showing this rivalry is still very much alive. Level 6, we get to some all-time rivalries.
Level 6, all-time greats.
The Bengals-Steelers rivalry has all the ingredients for greatness. AFC North division battles, physical football, and decades of history. The rivalry has produced some genuinely heated moments and memorable games. The Bengals played the Steelers in the playoffs in 2005. The Bengals lost Carson Palmer to an injury on their first drive, built a 17-7 lead. The Steelers scored 24 unanswered points to defeat the Bengals 31-17. Steelers were going to win the Super Bowl that season. We have all of Vontaze Burfict's hits, which probably ruined Antonio Brown forever, and then Juju getting him back after that. Both teams absolutely hate each other, but it's still not the biggest rivalry for the Steelers. One of the longest running rivalries in the NFL, the Giants and the Redskins, first faced off way back in 1932. The teams battled for the first time in the postseason in 1943, when Hall of Fame quarterback Sammy Bowe and the rest of the Redskins shut out the Giants before falling to the Bears in the NFL championship. The rivalry really then took off in the 80s, when Joe Gibbs and Bill Parcells roamed the sidelines in Washington and New York. During their 8 seasons against each other, Parcells' Giants enjoyed a victory 11-6 record over Gibbs and the Redskins that included a 17-0 victory in the 1986 NFC Championship. A year after watching New York hoist the Lombardi Trophy, Gibbs and the Redskins swept Parcells' Giants in 1987 en route to a rout of Denver in the Super Bowl. Parcells' Giants won 2 Super Bowls during that span, while Gibbs would lead his team to 4 NFC Championship titles and 3 Super Bowl wins. New York has mostly had the upper hand in the rivalry over the past quarter century, posting a 31-18-1 record against the Washingtons since the start of the 1995 season. But we'll see where things go, because now they both have 2 young quarterbacks. The Raiders and Chiefs have been going to war since 1963, and it's been an epic rivalry from day one. The Raiders demolished the Chiefs 41-6 in their first playoff meeting in 1968. The Chiefs got revenge with a 17-7 victory in 1970. Then came the 1991 playoff game where the Chiefs won 10-6 in a defensive slugfest. The Raiders are 2-9 in their last 11 meetings with Kansas City, but they did play spoiler to the eventual Super Bowl champions in 2023 on Christmas. That's what makes this rivalry special. No matter the record books, no matter the circumstances, these teams always bring out the best and worst in each other. Mahomes and Allen have created the best modern rivalry in football. Kansas City leads the recent playoff matchups 4-0, but almost every time has been an absolute classic. Obviously, the 2021 AFC divisional round, Chiefs winning 42-36 in OT, is what many consider the greatest playoff game ever played. The 2020 AFC Championship was a blowout, but the 2023 divisional round came down to the wire, and so did the 2024 AFC Championship game as well. This rivalry represents the new generation of NFL excellence. Two explosive offenses, two elite quarterbacks, and games that consistently deliver on the hype. The Packers have dominated this rivalry historically against the Lions, leading 107, 78, and 7 over 192 games. But the Lions have won 6 of their last 9, and suddenly, this ancient rivalry has new life. This rivalry nearly spans a century of football. The Packers' dominance during the Lombardi era, the Brett Favre years, and the Aaron Rodgers years. But the Lions are finally fighting back, and their recent success has made this rivalry relevant again. And of course, we have the rivalry between the Ravens and the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans. The Ravens assumed Cleveland's place in the AFC Central in 1996 when they were founded, in which the Oilers were also a member. As division rivals, the Ravens played the Oilers / Titans twice a year from 1996 through 2001. The teams met 13 times during these years, including once in the playoffs, a 24-10 upset win for the Ravens in the divisional round when they would go on to win the Super Bowl. Ray Lewis and Eddie George have hated each other ever since. And we can't forget early Lamar Jackson when they played the Titans as well in the 2019 playoffs. Coming off an MVP season and heavily favored, Mike Vrabel, Derrick Henry and the boys ran through Baltimore. But then the Ravens would get their revenge against the Titans the following year with Lamar Jackson taking it to the house for one of the most epic long touchdowns we'd ever see. And of course, we have to talk about the Bucs versus the Saints. Rivalry began when both teams were placed in the newly formed NFC South Division in 2002. Memorable moments include the Saints' 41-0 shutout in 2012 that remains the largest margin of victory in this series. The 2018 shootout where Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for 417 yards in Tampa Bay, winning 48-40. And the 2020 NFC divisional round where Tom Brady and the Bucs ended Drew Brees' career with a 30-20 victory after being swept in the regular season. All the fights with Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans are absolutely insane. And probably the last time Mike Evans gets 1,000 yards in a season came against the Saints, which is just very fitting. Now, all of those in Level 6 are all-time legendary rivalries. They're just not the best ever. And that's what we have up next.
Level 7, the best.
These are the best rivalries ever, and there are 6. Cowboys versus 49ers, 49ers versus Seahawks, Dallas versus Eagles, Pittsburgh versus Ravens, Packers versus Bears, and Brady versus Manning. Cowboys 49ers is one of the greatest rivalries in NFL history. This rivalry defined the 1990s. 3 straight NFC Championship games from 1992 to 1994, with the winner going on to win the Super Bowl each time. The Cowboys won the first 2 behind the triplets with Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, and Troy Aikman. The 49ers finally broke through and got their revenge with Steve Young in 1994. The recent playoff matchups have rekindled this rivalry. The 49ers eliminated the Cowboys in both 2021 and 2022, continuing their playoff dominance over Dallas. You have the historic catch with Dwight Clark, and of course the ongoing from the 49ers and winning a Super Bowl to the Cowboys and winning another one. The 49ers and Seahawks have been beating each other senseless, also for decades. The Seahawks lead the all-time series 31-24 over 55 games, including 2 playoff meetings, but this rivalry goes way beyond the numbers. This rivalry has produced some of the most memorable games in NFL recent history. The 2013 NFC Championship game where the Seahawks won 23-17 behind their legendary Legion of Boom defense. The back-and-forth battles during the Harbaugh era. Recent games like the 49ers winning 36-24 in 2024 and the Seahawks winning 20-17 later that season. It's been absolutely insane. And we all know what happens when you try Richard Sherman. Cowboys-Eagles is pure hatred, in its most refined form. After losing 9 of their first 10 games against the more established Eagles, the Cowboys, who didn't come into the NFL until 1960, quickly got up to Philadelphia's level. From 1967 to 78, Dallas went 21-2 against the Eagles, who went 18 years between playoff appearances after winning the NFL title in 1960. Philadelphia's time had finally come. In 1980, the Eagles, led by quarterback Ron Jaworski, won 2 of their 3 matchups against the Cowboys that included a 20-7 win over Dallas in the NFC Championship game, the first postseason game between the two teams. The Cowboys and Eagles each had their own moments of dominance against each other over the next decade, but that decade was pretty much dominated by the triplets. While head coach Andy Reid in the late 90s and early 2000s with quarterback Donovan McNabb and safety Brian Dawkins had their way for most of the 2000s with the Cowboys. In 2009, though, the Cowboys won 3 games in a span of 2 months over the Eagles that included Dallas's first playoff win in 14 years. The Eagles got back to their winning ways in the 2010s, winning 12 of their 20 against the Cowboys. Philadelphia, to the chagrin of many Cowboys fans, also won their first Super Bowl during that decade and have made 2 more, winning another in the 2020s. Steelers-Ravens is the gold standard of modern NFL rivalries. After moving from Cleveland to Baltimore in 1996, the Ravens shortly replaced the Browns as the Steelers' biggest rival within the AFC Central Division. The rivalry reached new levels in 2000 when the Ravens won their first Super Bowl behind a dominant defense led by Ray Lewis and former Steelers great Rod Woodson. The following season, Pittsburgh won a late season game in Baltimore to capture the division title. In the second round of the playoffs, the Steelers dethroned the Ravens by featuring their own dominant defense. Baltimore finally got the upper hand in Pittsburgh in 06 when the Ravens swept the series while outscoring the Steelers 58-7. Baltimore's dominance over the Steelers wouldn't last long though, with James Harrison coming out party happening at the expense of the Ravens during Pittsburgh's 07 regular season victory over Baltimore. At home during the AFC Championship game with rookie Joe Flacco and the Ravens threatening to take the lead late in the game, and then a pick six by no other than Troy Polamalu. In 2014, the Ravens finally got past the Steelers in the playoffs, with Flacco 2 years after leading the franchise to their second Super Bowl title. The Steelers would also keep the Ravens out of the playoffs in 2017 with an Antonio Brown extension. The oldest rivalry in the NFL, and it's still one of the best. The rivalry spans over a century of football, from the early days with George Halas and Curly Lambeau. While the Bears had some talent, the Packers, who won 5 titles in a 7-year span from 1961 to 1967, were downright loaded. The Bears' greatest post-Halas run of success against the Packers and in general took place from 1984 to 1988. During that span, Chicago, led by Mike Ditka, Jim McMahon, Jimbo Covert, Walter Payton, Mike Singletary, and the rest of Buddy Ryan's 46 defense, beat Green Bay 9 times out of 10, sweeping the Packers during that 85 regular season. Green Bay did prevent Chicago from repeating as champion, however, when Packers defensive end Charles Martin slammed McMahon into the dirt, causing the Bears quarterback to miss the 1986 playoffs. Then into Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers eras, where they've pretty much just dominated, including an unforgettable NFC Championship game win by the Packers. But this new era with Caleb and Jordan Love is still very up in the air. Brady and Manning faced each other 17 times, with Brady holding an 11-6 advantage, but every single meeting was an event. If you're looking for a reason why Manning spent the first half of his career being called a choker by the media, look no further than his first 6 meetings against the Brady-led New England Patriots. For the first half of the 2000s, Manning vs. Brady was the football version of Maria Sharapova versus Serena Williams, a rivalry in name only. The New England head coach essentially turned Manning, the most cerebral quarterback in NFL history, into a glorified Nathan Peterman. His nightmarish performance in the 2004 AFC Championship game was perhaps the lowest point of his career. Then it was only right that Manning's journey to his first Super Bowl ring included an AFC Championship game roadblock against New England. Manning finally got one over on Brady and Belichick on his way to his first Super Bowl victory. The Colts trailed in that game 21-3 before Manning engineered a comeback that rid himself of the choker label once and for all. From their first meeting in 2001 through their final battle in 2015, Brady and Manning defined quarterback excellence for nearly 2 decades. And so there you have it, the 7 levels of NFL rivalries. Thanks for watching.